Very good night, everyone. Welcome on a very interesting conversation on project management methodologies. So my name is Shivani Sinurain, and thank you all for being here tonight. We're going to discuss it for about 45 minutes or so. But I'll really appreciate if, the persons that are here right now, if you'll introduce yourself, tell us, are you in project management? What type of projects have you run? And what are your expectations from this conversation? After all, it's a conversation, right? So I need to be talking to you all, right? So let's get to, anyone would like to introduce themselves, tell us about, who you are and anything, projects, and we just have a nice 45-minute conversation on project management methodologies. So Alwyn, I saw you put on your camera. You're going to take the lead.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You heard me, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So good night, everyone. I'm Adelwin Holder. Yes, I am a project manager. I would say so. I've been, I think, about 15 years managing projects, mostly in the construction sector. Within the past 10 years, though, I've moved away from the building industry to undertake a couple creative projects as well, business projects and nonprofit as well. So yeah, the construction industry is not what it used to be, but I do get called back from time to time.
Yes. So welcome, Alwyn. You said you're 15 years, and sometimes when we say the length of time that we run projects, you might think people mightn't believe you because you're not looking like you have 15 years of experience, right?
Well, that's all right. Thank you very much.
So welcome. Nice to have you. So you're coming from a construction background, and I know you are PMP also. So welcome. We have Lucian O'Brien. Yeah, you want to introduce yourself or you want to type anything you want to say. If you want to talk, we'll really appreciate it as well. Lucian? No, we're not hearing you. Lucian O'Brien. Okay, we're not hearing you. Okay. What about Kristen? Could we hear Kristen? Right, we're not hearing Kristen either. And I'm seeing another person is joining us, right? Somebody's saying they're recording it for note-taking purposes. Okay, no problem. Hi, Lucian. Lucian, hope you're hearing us. Right, good. Yeah. Just want to tell us anything in terms of what type of projects are you from? What, anything you want to share, Lucian? Right. From St. Lucia. So are you in project management? What experience? We're hoping that this conversation will really make sense for you. So are you into projects? We assume you're into projects. What type of projects are you in? Project coordinator. Great. What type of projects? Construction as well. Okay, great. Nice to have you with us and welcome. And we have somebody else. I wonder if it's, yeah, so it's Kristen, but I'm not hearing Kristen as well. So feel free, Kristen, sorry, to put it on the chat what you're about. And I'm seeing somebody else is getting a little trouble to come in. So let's go because we said we'll be here from 7 to around 7:45 thereabout. So let me just share my screen, project management methodologies, and just converse about it. All right, so I'm just opening up my screen. I'm not seeing it as yet. Too many things open. All right, so I'm just looking for the presentation to share. on project management methodologies. So here we go. All right, so I'm going to share it. I'm just going to good. So we want to discuss some project management methodologies. What are they all about? I'm Shivani Sinurain, and who am I? Project management is my cup of tea or cup of coffee. You know, I preach everything with projects. I've worked on projects ranging from facilities management, construction projects, IT, a lot of innovation projects. So different types of projects. And one of the main issues or challenges that I'll always see is what is our approach? Some of us in project management, we simply jump into the project and you don't have a method, right? As they say, we need to have a method to the madness because project management, you know, you have a lot of challenges. So what is the method? And then sometimes we may be using the wrong method. So project management methodologies. To me, this is one of the first points that any project manager or anybody embarking on any project should discuss. How am I going to run my project? You know, a lot of us will say, yes, well, how to run it? You doing this, I doing that. But how are we going to deliver the project? We have to also think about that. Our project may have a product, and how do you deliver it? So this is I've always looked at this point as being very, very crucial. What is your methodology for projects? Now, from a Caribbean-based point, as you know, you're from St. Lucia, we have all the way from Suriname and, you know, and a lot of different Trinidad projects and all of these different types of projects. This is something that is lacking. I'm sure you all will all agree. We come on board as a project manager, and we may be coming on board as the subject matter expert in construction, if it's a construction project, or if it's IT as the IT project. But we are not coming on board as a specialist in project management. You know, sometimes we believe we are, and if we are, this to me is the first thing you'll ask. What is my method? What is my methodology? You may also say, well, I need to have a particular time, particular budget. Oh, yes, great. You have to have all those things. We're not saying no. But what exactly is the methodology? What really is your methodology? That's what we want to make sure. So if we look at it, what is your process? How do you select? How do you select a methodology? That's what I want you all to note. How do you select a methodology? Now, do you understand the type of project that you are working on? That's what we have to note. Do you have a type of project? Do you understand the size of the project? And to me, the most important aspect in any project that I run is the culture. Just today, it's not in a project environment, but mine today was more in an operational way, right? Operational work. And it just reminded me how much culture plays a part in everything that we do. So I may try to implement different structures and different processes, but culture may prevent me from doing that. So the term, as we always say, is that culture eats strategy for lunch, you know, or breakfast, lunch, and I always say breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Culture eats strategy all the time. You have heard that term over and over. Now, what do? Do you just say, okay, it's a culture thing, don't bother? Of course, we can't do that, right? But we have to understand the environment, and we call it the business environment that we operate in, right? We have to understand people. We have to understand the team. At the end of the day, it's garbage in, garbage out. So in our analysis, before we select any methodology or before we talk about method and what do? Do you really understand the type of project? Do you understand the size of the project? Do you understand the culture? Now, just by looking at this slide, which would you see as the most important then? Lucien, you want to type anything and tell us, or you want to just open your mic and talk? Yeah? Which to you is the most important aspect? Yeah? Which one would you focus the most on? That's what I'm trying to get at. Which would you focus the most on? Okay. Right. You feel free to type if you want to type. I know you went out and you came back in, so probably get a little trouble with your mic. Yeah. Kristen? Alwyn, yeah? What to you, when you see this, is the most important aspect to you, if any at all?
At least from my experience, it would be the size.
The size, how big the project is.
Yeah, well, I want to, I mean, I do believe the answer is all three, but in most instances, it's normally based on the size and the scope of work to be covered.
The size, the scope.
Yeah.
Of course, I would agree too. The size is very, very important. Probably if it's a smaller project, we may not be, placing so much emphasis on it in terms of how you deliver or the amount of people that you need, the type of project. So size has a lot to do with it because you'll know how much resources you require as well. Culture. Well, I will always say culture got a lot to do with it, right? You know that. So when we look at this now, right? When we look at this, which is the project, you could call it the methodologies if you want to say that. You have to talk about predictive, iterative, incremental, and agile. Now, when we discuss a project that is predictive is definitely what? Predictive is definitely waterfall. Now, are you running your project more in a waterfall approach? Are we running it iterative or incremental, or are we going extreme agile? Extreme agile. If we are looking at a predictive is where you have to know all the requirements up front before you could do any work. So you must know, I need to execute why, I need to do this. I must look at what do I have to accomplish up front. I need to know everything. That is in a predictive way. Would you say then, anybody, would you say that if I'm teaching right now and I have to develop some curriculum, I'm just giving us a quick example, and I have to develop curriculum, do I need to know all of the requirements up front before I could execute it? Keep that in mind, right, to answer. Requirements are defined up front before development begins. This is in a totally predictive way. If you are looking at a predictive life cycle or the predictive methodology, which is also known as your waterfall, you need to deliver plans for the eventual deliverable. Then deliver only a single final product at the end of the project timeline. So what we are saying with a predictive now, with a predictive, you're only given one at the end, right? You're only given one at the end. With predictive, change is constrained as much as possible. With predictive or waterfall, key stakeholders are involved at specific milestones. With predictive, risk are controlled and costs are controlled by detailed planning, mostly knowable considerations, everything you know. So think about the project, and that's how we started the conversation, right? Remember, we started the conversation by asking this: how do you select a methodology? And we are asking, do you know the type of project? Do you know the size of the project? Do you know the culture? Culture impacts. Just a couple of days ago, I was in discussion. We wanted to look at some projects and run it more agile, but the culture we don't have an agile culture, right? It was more waterfall. So people need to be trained, you need to be educated in how you're going to run an agile. And then we were also saying, does it really make sense to run this project in an agile way, or should we have simply look at it predictive or waterfall? So I'll share a couple, one of my stories and in what I think I'm running it really agile right now, totally. So type of project size and culture. This is the first, type of methodology is waterfall, right? Which is the predictive way. And predictive is simply looking at you need to know everything up front, all the requirements up front. An example you may see would be construction. You can't go and build a house if you didn't know all the requirements and the entire plan up front. Would we say that, Alwyn? I mean, you said you're in construction, and also Lucien said that, Lucien.
Well, for a house, probably. But for like much larger projects, you need to have all the requirements up front.
Up front, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What about Nathan? What do you think, Nathan? Nathan, yeah, you hearing us, Nathan? I'm sorry you join us. Yeah. So yeah. Mm-hmm. So my question is, Nathan, right? We are discussing methodology. We are trying to understand what will work, what type of project, what type of methodology. And we're saying in construction, oil and gas, you come from these type of industries as well. Do you believe that in order, you need to know all of the requirements, so everything up front before you could execute the job in construction, if you're building a house or any kind of construction?
Well, yeah, for most part, or probably you would consult the relevant persons who might be there to support you as well too.
Yeah. So what we're asking, do you need to know everything up front, or could I do it a little differently, right? With construction, I break it up in phases. I say phase 1, right, this is what I have to do, and I go on and do it. But I don't know everything for phase 2, and I don't know everything for phase 3.
Well, yeah, you could take it in parts,
And then know all of the requirements. But
exactly.
see, this conversation is trying to really make us think what will work and what will not work, right? So predictive, if you are looking at a project and it is totally waterfall or totally predictive, Nathan, this is saying, you know what? You need to know everything upfront, meaning all the requirements, every single requirement. And then and only then I'll go and start to do the job to build the house. I must know the foundation requirements. I must know every single thing. You must do detailed planning, which is predictive, right? So you have to see what will work. Remember, I started conversation by saying this is why projects fail. People using the wrong methodology also. And moving again, iterative and incremental, not totally agile as yet, but is moving towards total agile. So you have predictive, iterative, incremental, and agile. So both iterative and incremental requirements can be elaborated at periodic intervals during delivery. So as you deliver it, as you're delivering something to somebody, you're saying, elaborate now on the requirements. Again, culture might say you needed to have everything documented up front. You needed to know all of the requirements. So you have to see what will work. That's what it come into. Yeah. Right. So Lucien is saying construction for me have to be predictive. Good. All right. But iterative and incremental delivery can be divided into subsets of the overall product. So you know the product. Is it the house? Could you break it up into different subsets and then deliver in pieces like that? Yeah. So the example that I have also in facilities management, right? So a basic example is this, Nathan. With facilities, let's say we have a particular site and I need to maintain these classrooms, right? Which involve painting, changing the tiles, right? Putting the whiteboard, so I'll have a scope. That's facilities management. is it now I could run that? I have to paint all the classrooms first, or could I have done this in pieces? So delivery can be divided into subsets of the overall product. Come back and ask that, right? And keep that in mind. So one of my projects is to maintain about 10 classrooms at a site. We have a timeline. I'm asking, do I need to know all the requirements up front? Or could I have planned this in pieces? What could I do? Change is incorporated at periodic intervals. That's with iterative and incremental. Then key stakeholders are regularly involved. With iterative and incremental, you would have people who you're regularly going to involve them in this conversation. With iterative and incremental again, risk and cost are controlled by progressively elaborating the plans with new information. Then you have agile. With agile, requirements are elaborated frequently during delivery. So as you're delivering, now you could get to know your requirements. With agile, delivery occurs frequently with customer value subsets of the overall product. With agile, again, changes are incorporated in real time during delivery. With agile, key stakeholders are continuously involved. With agile, risk and costs are controlled as requirements and constraints emerge. So my question now is the same thing again, Lucien. Facilities management. I have 10 classrooms. I want to paint them. I want to, what we said again, change the blackboards. I want to do some deep cleaning, change from carpet, it was there, into tiles. So I have 10 rooms to do. Would I do that waterfall, which is get to know, document all the requirements up front? Could I do it agile, iterative, incremental? How could this work? Share something with us, Nathan. So I'll give you an example, right? My example, and you tell me what you think.
Okay. Well,
so my classroom is 10 classrooms, right? And I have
mm-hmm.
to paint them. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think you have to know the requirements up front for doing it, which would be predictive, right? Because if you're really thinking about it in that aspect, yes, you're changing the boards, however, so you'll have to know where you're getting your stuff and thing from up front. Probably your cleaning agents and probably if you're renting equipment. So you have to know. And you also have a timeline to do it, correct?
Yeah.
So I would say more or less a kind of predictive approach.
So I have 10 classrooms. So Lucien was asking the question. I have 10 classrooms to maintain. I have a timeline, I have a budget. I have to paint them. I have to fix the boards. I have to tile, I have to do deep cleaning and everything. My question is, could I run this predictive or agile? Nathan is saying we need to do it predictive. We need to know all the requirements up front. Lucien, yeah? Predictive for you as well, your favorite thing, predictive. Alwyn? What would you say?
I would argue predictive as well, solely on the basis of cost as being the key driver and constraint.
Cost, because of course you needed to know all the requirements up front, and then, okay.
And And then also, it's a live environment as well too. So some of the projects that I've done in the past kind of fall into the scenario that you've highlighted.
Mm-hmm.
And within a live environment, like where people work in, like a school, a bank, whatever it is, you don't have the luxury of time and trying to figure out requirements as you go along, because in most instances you have to work outside of their usage hours, so it doesn't afford you the luxury of um figuring out things as you go along. So you have a limited time frame or window in which to get your work done. You have a limited budget, obviously, because I don't think anybody does anything with an open check. And then you also know exactly what has to be done, right? You may not know the paint color, but you have to paint. So you could probably figure out the paint color like the last minute, but
You have to buy it.
yeah, you have to buy it, but you should know that you are painting, what your paint specification is, how much you're going to be using, and the color could be probably the very last thing, right? But you don't have the luxury of um, using an agile approach, which I believe is more, well, as far as I understand, it's more driven by the software industry anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the building industry does not tolerate that kind of uncertainty for too long. So
we'll say it's predictive. Okay,
yeah,
but
definitely.
go with me a little bit on that one and say, could I, if you look at the second point now, so I do agree, I need to know all my requirements, because, so I like to look at it in this way. I need to understand my project scope and I need to understand my product scope, right? What would be the product of that facilities management maintenance? What is the product?
You mean in terms of output?
Yeah, the product. What is the product for me? The product is the refurbished classrooms, right?
Correct.
And what is the project scope then? The project scope will be getting all the requirements, the logistics, the resources, yeah?
Procurement,
So,
labor,
procurement,
equipment, right? Yeah.
So if I have to separate this thing, for me to understand product scope and to really now focus on improving of the product, because here's what I'm throwing out. I need to know the requirements, no problem, right? I know the requirements, which is predictive. I needed to know painting, electrical, plumbing, whatever you see. Okay, all right. Could we then look at, so I purchase all the electrical, I purchase everything already, I have everything up front. Could we now say, hey, let us do one classroom at a time. Paint it, fix the electrical, let the stakeholder now get involved. And then when the stakeholder come in, looking at one classroom alone, they could make a change, and then that could be carried across now for the second classroom. Yeah, I'm throwing out an idea for you all to hear me to talk.
All right. Yeah. So I hear that. But it also increases the possibility of
going over.
Well, yeah. Because so one of the things that we try to avoid in the building industry is continuous mobilization of resources. So you bring somebody to do a job, then they have to pack up and leave and come back again. So we try to avoid those operational costs that increase your budget and increase your runtime. So I hear what you're saying, but it increases the cost. Yeah.
No, but I still thinking, right? If now I have the requirements, as I was saying, I have purchased everything already, the paint and the electrical and the supplies and things. And I'm trying to find a way that if I don't want to finish everything, the whole 10 classrooms, and then I realize, but wait, when I walk through, the stakeholder come and they walk through, this is not what they want. And then I have to go back and rework something. Yeah. So food for thought with that one. Could it happen, right? But of course, I do look at it mainly as being predictive. The most things for that example would have been get all the requirements, understand the product, the project scope, and then you look at your product now. what is the product, and then we determine, is it that you're going to paint all the classrooms together first, all 10? Or is it I'm going to focus on just doing everything in one classroom first? Painting, doing all the scope, which is all the requirements. So am I going to paint all 10? And then I'm going to, remember, I'm doing this, right? I should have thrown this idea. I'm doing this with an internal team. I'm not going to hire people from outside. I have resources. I'm trying to see if I work it this way, would I finish faster? Would I finish faster? And would I have a product that has better value for the customer, which is the student and the staff? By using what? Knowing the requirements, make sure and say, hey, folks, you have 10 classrooms. Are you all going to paint everything, all the classrooms? Then you're going on to the next one, then the next one, next. Or are you painting one classroom? Are you fixing the board in one classroom? Are you changing the tile in one classroom? And then let somebody come and walk you through that process and see. And then you might take the learnings from that then and carry across to the next classroom.
So
Do all
you
the
bring up-
classroom at once? What do you mean do all the classroom at once, Lucien? Do all the classroom at once. Yeah? Okay, we wait for you to come back on the type. Yeah, what you were saying now, Alwyn or Nathan?
What's the benefit of, in that example, right? What would be the benefit of doing one classroom as a model? And I assume that you're doing it as a proof of concept for the
Yeah,
client
yeah,
to say,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
all right, we are
Mhm.
happy with this, now proceed.
Mhm.
Is it that the client is engaged at that point and a part of the process, and this is their request?
No, not that is their request. They didn't request it. They didn't request anything. We try now to show that if Agile could work in this way to finish the job faster and to give the client a better product. That's all. That's our little discussion here. If you use Agile in that way.
Nah, so then I can't see it happening, right? Because again, if you're looking at client, like ensuring that the client is satisfied, you could actually do a mock-up
Mhm,
prior to actually implementing any work.
mhm,
So a simple sketch, maybe some watercolors or whatever, just to kind of show them.
mhm, mhm.
You show them a detailed scope of work, and you let them review. I mean, what we've done in the past is like sit with clients, walk through the entire process. Even if we have like design teams involved, if it's a much larger project, we show them what it would look like, to avoid um
So in this case, right, we don't have anything like that. Let's say
right.
we have no mock-up, we have no fancy thing like that. We just had to paint this facilities management, maintenance aspect. So we have
Right.
no fancy thing like what you see to show them before.
Right. Well, then it's not. I can't see it working, to be completely honest.
Which one? What?
The agile
Mhm.
approach.
Yeah,
It's just
meaning
going to
that you
increase.
still say predictive.
Yeah, it's just going to increase your cost, to be completely honest, right?
So show it
It's
them at
going
the
to
end of the project. Show them the
yeah,
final thing at the end.
yeah. So make sure that they sign off at the onset.
Mhm,
You do everything as once, as Lucian was saying,
mhm.
and then they have to. Well, the most they could probably do is be completely upset at the end and said that's not what they expected, and you go and do it over again. But I would think, in the ideal scenario, um, you specify everything at the onset, you plan your work around it, you deliver it, and then you move on, probably another initiative, as the case might be. But you want to try and avoid doing one
Mhm.
and then waiting for input and then continuing from there.
Okay, good. So nice points there in our analysis. Nathan, you want to say something? So I'm glad we're talking. Yeah, Nathan?
Yeah, so I was listening to what's
Alwyn,
it,
yeah? Mm-hmm.
Alwyn?
Mm-hmm.
Now you're saying that it may not work, which I completely can agree with
Mm-hmm.
as well. You're saying that you will do it, and then they probably might be vexed at the end, and they might have to do it over.
Mm-hmm.
Now, me thinking in that limelight, what would you think, or what do you think about your reputation after that?
What do you mean? What do you mean? You lost me. What do you mean my reputation? What do you mean after? What do you mean
So
after?
you
That's when
remember
I
he
fail.
said, right? Remember he said you deliver, and then probably when they come, probably that is not what they
Well,
expect. You
well,
understand?
well, to clarify, right? So what I was getting at is that we have two scenarios, right? One where out of the 10 rooms you do one to completion,
Mm-hmm.
right? At that point, the client can come in and say, okay, they're satisfied with that one,
Right.
and then you could deliver the other 9, because at that point the client has seen the well, I wouldn't say the full or completed product, but he's seen a working version of what the final product would be, and then they could sign off and you say you proceed,
Mm-hmm.
right? But in that case, the client has that input, and then you could continue with the rest of the job. But in my thinking, that input at that point increases your cost.
Yeah, don't want that. That's just what you meant. Yeah, I know
Right,
you and
right,
Lucian talking that.
right.
But
Right.
if
So,
they
but
come
at
and
the
they say something now that they want a change the tile, wear like a color tile or something.
or something, or they probably pick some off-white color for the walls and said it's not what they
Yeah.
expected.
Yeah, I'll
So
go back and
so
buy
now
more paint.
right, so now you have to go get rid of the paint that you have to get more paint to suit something more in line with what they want. But if it's done at the onset, where even before you touch the first room, you go through this with them and you show them samples, you show them this, you show them. I mean, there are ways and means to do it, right? There's no
Right.
like
Cool.
one one magic way, right? I mean, it's all contextual. But if you work with the client at the onset and you say, okay, this is exactly what we are going to do, this is how we are going to do it, this is how long it's going to take, and you get their approval at that point, then your maintenance team is basically free to run. Now, what there is a risk with that, where they could, at the end of all 10 rooms, they could say, we don't like any of that, right? And I'm saying, yes, it is a potential risk. And at that point, I would never be worried about my reputation, because I went through a process with you as a client
In the beginning.
in the beginning,
Yeah.
discussing what your requirements are, finalizing those requirements, having you as a client sign off on it. So if anybody should be upset at the end, it would be the client with itself, unless there was an issue with the quality of the work that was done. So maybe the guy didn't prime the wall properly, or paint all on the floor. Then they could say, okay, well, you did a poor quality job, which is, I think, is where your reputation might come into play at that point. But if you follow the process of working through with the client before the first
You do all the
brushes
detail planning up front.
thing up front, yeah,
And that's what you mean, Alwyn?
yeah. So you're very clear on your costs, you're very clear on your timelines, and you're very, very sure about your deliverables at that point.
Good.
Right? Yeah.
So, great conversation, Lucien and Nathan and Alwyn. So far, we're accepting that we should really manage that type of project in a predictive or a waterfall approach. What do we want? We want to ensure, now this is where the detailed planning really comes up in front a lot. Where, as you said, you're sitting with the client, whosoever the client is, and they will have sign-offs that they have accepted this as the requirements, so all of the requirements. Now, could we do it? So, all right, what about just purchasing the paint alone, right? You sit down with the client and you just purchase the paint alone. And then now you go and you paint all of the classrooms, the 10 classrooms, and you let everybody come and they watch it, obviously. You're painting as in one aspect. Then after you paint, you need to do what? Time coming to do what? Time coming for what? You go now and you do the tiling aspect. So my requirements are not all planned in detail in the beginning. I am elaborating on it as I go down the road. What do you think about that idea as well? So we trying, Olwen, Nathan, you'll say are trying to push this agile on us, but I'll give you a better example. I'm just trying to see if what are your thoughts on this aspect?
So I think at that point, it will be a reflection on the organization itself, the client organization. Um, and it kind of goes back to that point you made about the culture of the organization. Because if a client actually demands of its maintenance team that you approach a project that way, it means that, to me, there's a deficiency in leadership in that organization to begin with. Now, at that point, yes, they could say, okay, we want you to do the painting first. And then once you sign off on that, then you go and you do the tiling next. And they sign off on that. And you step through the project that way. Then I think at that point, I think it's kind of contingent on the client organization itself and how they function and how they view the maintenance team's work and their outputs.
Yeah. Why you say in terms of the leadership as being
Well,
why? Because
I've seen I have worked on a couple of jobs similar to
like
what
that,
you're talking about,
and you didn't like
and
it at all.
well, I didn't like it, but I realized when I did a sort of a root cause analysis, I realized the problem was the organization, the client itself, whether it was an individual or a team. They did not understand. So they had issues, right, with people who've done work for them in the past. So perhaps the experience was poor. Maybe they don't understand the process. So we're talking about processes. Maybe they don't understand that a predictive approach, sorry, is more efficient than, okay, I want to see a piece, and then once I'm happy with it, then you move on to the next piece and so on and so forth. And I think at that point, it becomes more reflection on the client and possibly their insecurities or lack of understanding or knowledge about the project and the best approach to delivering it.
So let's see, right? We have a problem with money, right? We're not getting money for the organization. We're just not getting money to fund what we want to do. So we need to come about with something now that could show some type of value. So it's all right. When somebody comes physically into a brick and mortar campus, into a classroom environment, right? What you feel will make you real happy when you're sitting down and you're watching this thing? What would make you happy sitting in a classroom? What's the first thing that Nathan you'll watch for in the classroom? If the color of the walls looking clean, right? Or if the place looking clean. I'm just saying something, I'm asking. What you feel? We don't have money, right? And we're trying to find a way to make people happy in our classroom. Money limited. And you still have, all right, always saying air conditioning.
Probably the floor.
The floor.
The ceiling. Those kinds of things.
Right. So we know we're not going to get all the money for this. So I know all the requirements, about 10 different things. We know we're not going to get all. But you have to at least do something in the 10 classrooms to make people very comfortable, which is what I refer to as the customer journey map, right? Where it will show you the most value. Something must show you the most value. All right, you say AC. Okay, all right, good, no problem. I do that first. And then afterwards, the second thing is the paint. So let's say we don't get all the money for everything. At least we get something. At least we get something. So the first, we managing this project based on limited funds. That's what I'm trying to ask. You have a scope to do 10 classrooms. You know you're not going to get this 10 classrooms up and ready. You know what you have there is not going to happen. So which one are we going to have the most value first for this product? Is it AC? Is it painting? And we get the paint and we start. Down the road, you know, well, I could probably get more requirements. I know the requirements and then I'll elaborate more, right? But I'm looking at which one should I do first, and then I'm really giving you still part of the product. I'm giving you part of the product because I really don't have the money, but I'm giving you something in the beginning and giving you something. Now, another way, right? Because we did a lot of analysis with this. We have 5 different sites. Now, all of these sites, you need to do the same type of work in order to prepare students to come back for the September semester. You don't have the money. Is it then you think we should go and finish one site, one building, San Fernando, and then you forget about St. Augustine? What will happen to the St. Augustine students? So I am throwing out the idea. Would you say then we should give a little piece to the south, we should give a little piece to the east, we should give a little piece to the north, and then everybody gets a little something that they could at least do what? Come into a functional space. Alwyn, you hear my whole big analysis with lack of funding? Lack of funding.
So that is, yes, so that is a very solid point. And I think, okay, at that point, some more dialogue will have to take place between you and the client to determine what's the best way to apportion or use those funds.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one is a little bit more of a challenge because you're talking about multiple locations and
Is it
and
that you go and
multiple.
you finish one alone, and then I will get calling up and saying, but Shivani, look at me in Port of Spain, I have a look at the building and
Yeah.
I still need to get people. So we, my maintenance, right? This is what we started to do originally, finish one. And then I said, but no, this is a number of years before. I said, but you're finishing one and we cannot finish the rest. So this thing is just not working. So what do? Do you hold the organization now and say, hey, give us all the money, give us this, we not, that, I mean, we had to change strategy. We have to change strategy. So we came about with this idea and it really did work, but I mean, we still have to, it's not a perfect thing as yet, don't get me wrong. But it worked in the sense that people, we made it functional, that you could come and you could sit in, right? What is functional to you? You have to have a classroom to paint. You have to have, you can't be what? If floor, what you were saying, Nathan, falling through the floor, right? So everybody getting a little piece of the pie. Now I could have changed that strategy a little different, right? But this is trying to show it in a more agile way where you're not finishing one thing, you're not finishing one building. In that case, you will not finish in one building, totally at all. But that building could still open up and do your work. You're making it what? Functional for purpose. For purpose. Alwyn, any ideas, Nathan? What, Lucian, anything? Nathan, yeah?
No, nothing really. I don't know if I missed anything before in terms of iterative or incremental. If you had a
No, well, we were
scenario with that as yet.
no. We just started
Okay.
a little bit, but we went to 2 extremes, predictive versus agile.
Okay.
Now, very good. You part of the good convo here. Iterative and incremental. This is just looking at the approach. What I was taking is really incremental, you know. You realize that I'm doing piece by piece by piece. So it's really incremental that I was using. Good. So in our conversation so far, we are seeing that the waterfall approach is something that really working more for construction. However, throwing out something that for facilities management, could I have used some aspect of the agile with lack of funding? And really and truly, that's what we had to do. And people were happy because we had walkthroughs and they got a piece of the pie. And as we move on, but just today I was speaking to my maintenance supervisor about it, and I was telling him, we have to be so careful on that because we could forget, we're supposed to go back to paint here. So our whole strategy had to change, right? But I mean, we got to do what we have to do in order to work. So I'm sharing that some aspect of agile is how we manage, from the predictive to the agile. Great. And this is a story, my project story. And you'll tell me, I'll share with you how it's been run as a totally agile project, right? So my project story is to create a student for the future. So what it is about, creating this new type of student. The student at present in your classroom is, are we saying, we're talking about primary school and secondary school and stuff like that, right? Talking about that, I ain't talking about university, but everybody. What type of student do you see coming out of the system, Nathan? What type of student? Is it a curious student? Is it an inquisitive student? What type of student is it coming out of this type of thing? What type of student? Yeah, Nathan, yeah? What type of student really coming out?
I would say a little bit of both in some cases.
Okay. All right. Now, the point what I'm trying to throw out really is the student is not really being trained to be more problem solvers or critical thinkers, or, you know, those of us who know me, more design thinking professionals to solve a problem for the long term, right? We are not really being taught that, or even if we have been taught that, is on a very small scale. So this is the type of project that we want to do, to create a student for the future. Now, I am just the new future student. How should this new student look? There's AI. You could go now very, very soon and you could get to know anything. You could learn to fix your car, anything, it's there, right? What is that going to do now? What then you will be able to teach students is to problem solve. So we have to find a way now to problem solve, to teach people, hey, this is a challenge and how do you solve it? Look at when we started the conversation, Alwyn, Nita, and Lucien. That is what you were doing. I threw out a little challenge in facilities and then we trying to solve it. But sometimes some people, we don't think like that. We say, but that's a challenge. Is the organization, there's the problem, there's the problem, there is the problem, not we, right? It is because our thinking is not like that. Our thinking is that this is the way, this is what we're supposed to do, and they're supposed to give it to me. We don't want change then, right? So my project is to create a student for the future, the new student for the future with these new types of skills. Right. That is, I'm just throwing that out, Alwyn, right? Before I show you what I'm doing right now. So I'm just throwing that out. Would you say that a predictive way will work in this thing?
No, I don't believe that it would.
More agile? Because I don't
No,
have a lot of information.
I would say it's somewhere in between.
But you get what we're saying, right? Our
Mhm.
project is a project I've started already. Is we want to create now the new type of student. Now, immediately, Nathan, I don't know how long this is going to take. It might take 10 years. It might take 5 years. So, but I have to start with something. Now, anytime you hear the term agile, or when you're thinking agile is chaos, them don't know what they're doing, they don't have a structure. That's where you think, Nathan, so far you're thinking that you don't have a structure. How you could not know all your requirements? Yeah, how could you not know your requirements? So here's what it is, right? Now, I don't know, as I was telling people, I don't know when we will actually get this new type of student. I cannot say 3 years, I cannot say 5 years, I do not know. So it's definitely an agile because I don't have a time frame for the perfect student as yet. But I have to start to do some type of tests. So we have come about with a 7-week program. Now, the 7-week program would be where we are doing design thinking with some technologies and agriculture. We're testing it with agriculture first. We'll take all the learnings from that now, and we'll say, students, we have the training assessment, we have created the curriculum and everything. Then we will see, did it really work? Are these students problem solvers? Now, you and I both know after 7 weeks that this thing can really work so much, but you want them now to have that curiosity that they can do it. Now, after the 7 weeks, right? So my 7 week is my first phase. That's what it is. My 7 weeks is my first phase. Now, really and truly, I did plan that out. I know the requirements. I have the training. I have the assessment. I know the type of student. I use your word, Alwyn, which was user persona and story mapping and all those kind of things. We know the type of student that we want to bring into this thing, a primary school and a secondary school. We know when we want to roll it out. January, we want to start to roll it out. We have gotten funding for the project because obviously you needed to have money to do this thing. And after the 7 weeks now, what would be some of the learning outcomes? The learning outcomes are is the student now prepared to enter into some type of challenge? Could they do this challenge? Do they understand these challenges? Then I may say, the next 7 weeks now, because we're looking at the 7 weeks at the end of a sprint, then if you want, you could look at it like that, a retrospective. And the lessons learned then will teach me yes or no. Chances are the answer is no, right? Am I going to run another cohort and try to test more with different types of students? That is yet to be determined. We don't know if we will still keep with the same agricultural design thinking challenge, or am I now going to get a new test case to solve, which is, we find in Trinidad, there's a lot of localized things that we could use, which is stick fighting, and we could come about with a challenge and ask students, and then you form another test case. And that's another 7 weeks. And then we go on and on again. So the new type of student, I cannot tell you when, but I can tell you that I have planned the first phase. How have I planned the first phase? I've planned it in a predictive way, you know, because I have done, I looked at all the requirements that I need, and I'm going to roll it out. So I have planned that in a predictive way. The learnings from that now will help me to do another phase. Now, I don't know yet what the other phase would be. Is it that I'm going to use the same design thinking? I don't know. What do you think so far? Let me just share that aspect. Alwyn, you want to say something? Nathan? I saw somebody was in it. What do you think? That's a pie in the sky kind of project? Nathan, that's a pie in the sky kind of project? Don't bother with that?
I might take some time.
But that type of project?
Yeah.
Well, you know, of course it will take some time. I agree with you, but you know, that's the type of projects that I really like to embark on, which is to really create now a change. Let me see if I could pull it up. Pull it up a little bit here. So we're calling this innovation literacy, right? Our entrepreneurs creating new products and services for the emerging green and blue economies. Our entrepreneurs prepared for the change in technology landscape, all of those things, right? And we are saying no. We are saying no, they're not. We want to prepare students in a certain way. And this is what we are proposing. Right? We are the implementation phase 1. It is a 7-week after-school program on weekends. 20 participants, aged 5 to 17, from 2 schools, 1 primary and 1 secondary. 5 lesson modules, 3-hour in-class activities per module, 2-week out-of-class activities. Right? And well, I'm doing it at UE. So an implementation phase 1 project. Is this, have I planned this aspect of it agile? No. I haven't planned it agile, you know. Well, I did use some of the artifacts, right? So, but what I'm saying, all of the requirements for phase 1, right? I have to know all of the modules. I needed to know every single aspect, the resources, what is the operate, you know? I needed to have everything. And then I'll go on, I'll roll it out. So I have received funding. I'm almost there, but I'll get the funding from a funding agency. and then we're rolling it out for the 7 weeks. But this is part of a bigger picture. The bigger picture, the more holistic thinking is that we want to create a new type of student, right? Now, this is just one aspect. You'll have many different stakeholders that we have to get involved. I cannot tell you the timeline when the entire student, how it will change. But we've started it with a 7-week innovation design thinking program. Questions? Let's take some questions. I saw Ravi was coming in, but Ravi is no longer here. He was trying to get involved also. Alwyn, anything you want to contribute? Oh my, 8 o'clock already. We're having such great time.
No, well, I completely understand what you're going for. So you're going for an initiative with a sort of a, how do I describe it? I think you used the word iterative before, where you deliver a segment, you learn from that segment, you apply some of those learnings towards the next phase or the next step, and you continue to iterate on your idea until you get the results that you're looking for, correct?
Yeah, the new type of student, a new type of problem solver.
Correct, yeah.
The type of student that eventually want is, there's a challenge. You're not supposed to wonder what to do. You're supposed to say, I want to solve this thing. Because you and I both know, and Nathan, we end up with people in a job in the workplace. And if things are not a certain way, they cannot function. They cannot function. They have people come out with their first degrees and masters and all of that, and that's their mindset. Who is to blame? Is it the blame, or is it the system and the structure and the schooling and the environment, right? We know what we know. People don't know what they don't know. So unless you are taught something for the environment, you're going to be the same way. So the new type of student, we are saying, the design thinking approach is allowing you to solve any challenge, right? To solve any challenge. You want that there is a problem, Nathan, we want to say, all right, I'm looking for challenges. Now, I'm somebody like that. I don't like the status quo. I'll prefer to go and look for the challenge, but I wasn't trained like that. That's just me. I came out like that. That's probably me. But my schooling is, it's the same type of schooling that all of us had. Go and you do, after A's, you go and you do a degree, and my degree didn't really teach me challenges. My degree was, very structured in my way, IT. I guess IT does teach you to solve things. So I don't know when this new type of student will come. And that is definitely an agile project. But I am doing the first phase. And the first phase is a test project where we're using hydroponics and aquaponics. So we have all the resources, we have the people, we have embarked on it. We have planned it out. We're going to use user case, great stuff, At the end of the 7 weeks, you're going to say, is this student now able to handle challenges? We may say, no, we want them back again to handle another one, or we're not going to do hydro again. We're going to do stick fighting as the test case and teaching them how to challenge. Now, why I'm saying stick fighting is that when we want more Caribbean-based cultures and, environment to do our test cases on, but challenges, rather than just doing international, you want more Caribbean based. So stick fighting, moko jumbi, all those different things, arts and science and all of that. So we're running this project agile because why? We do not know when the entire project will be completed, but we're running it in a phase by phase basis. That's what we're trying to do. So Nathan, sum up what we have learned so far. Because we could go and talk how much? Quite a lot more, right? Nathan, yeah?
Yeah.
Sum up it, yeah. Any key takeaways?
Let's see, but understand where it came from with it, and the previous person that was who.
Alwyn on Old Lucien,
Yes. I understand where you're coming from with it. So
with
I could-
agile versus the predictive, because with that type of project, I couldn't run that predictive. I can't get all the requirements up front to know the perfect student. I don't know. So that is definitely an agile project. So, you know, we need to use agile more for innovative projects. Innovative culture equal agile culture. Definitely. That's a way to look at when should I use agile versus when I should not use agile.
Okay.
Innovation, definitely. With construction, I'm still playing around with it. We're doing certain aspects of facilities management and definitely running it like that. And there were a couple of people that, you know, we're trying to look at more, how could we run this in the construction industry? So you want to come and tell me, and, you know, we could do more of it. Let's see. So Alwyn, over to you. Key takeaways before I take back the convo.
I think the only thing I would add to it is that what I've always done in the past is blend the two
Blended to
extremes.
hybrid. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it always depends on the type of project, of course, the project size, even location. All of those factors come into how I would argue how rigid your dedication to one approach is.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't flex as the situation might demand. Because as some of the guys here might attest, sometimes you do encounter some very strange situations on a building project, and you have it never factored anywhere into your planning, anywhere into your thoughts. It's just completely out of left field, but you have to clearly understand what is happening and adjust, right? So I've always kind of leaned somewhere in between. I you know, planning wise, you're very rigid, but in terms of implementation, you do allow for some flexibility and innovation along the way, but not too much.
Good. Great. So thank you very much. Now, this whole conversation started with what? By ensuring that when we embark on a project, what is the methodology? Now, when we talk in methodology, this is it agile, predictive, or hybrid. We also, you know, if you need to present, we call it a cadence, CADENCE. How are you going to deliver? Are you going to deliver single? Are you going to deliver multiple? If it is single, you're definitely talking what? Predictive, right? If it is that you are delivering something, multiple aspects or multiple iterations, you can probably look at some hybrid or some agile. So that also helps me to determine what is my approach. If it is one aspect that I have to deliver at the end, that's what they want, well, I may have to do that predictive. If it is a multiple aspects or phase basis, then probably I might look at hybrid. So, any questions, anyone? No. Thank you very much. I hope that, you know, our was 45 minutes, but we went obviously over because I know we would have great conversation. My key takeaway really always that I want to leave you with, when you have to embark on a project, we need to sit down and analyze what is the best methodology that will work. Because sometimes we get so tied up and you see the failure. So understanding the methodology, understanding the approach really helps us. There's so much more to learn with methodologies, and we'll have more conversations, especially we want to discuss the Scrum and all of that, what could we. So I look forward to having more conversations.